Hello, this is Mr. Kent of MrKent.com, and in my last video I showed how I could actually drop a glider from my Mavic 2 Zoom. I've got so many toys it's hard to keep track. Anyway, actually out of 5 flights I got 2 of them to glide like they're supposed to. The other ones were not successful. But I felt like I had success, and I knew what I needed to do to remember all the little steps before I flew and stuff like that. So anyway, bottom line is, at the end of that video I said it's time to find a new adventure, just like Ellie said or wrote to the old man in the movie called Up. Well, anyway, so, I had a couple days and I was thinking, what shall I do? And then I got to thinking, I've had so much fun with gliders, and I started looking into the possibility of a radio-controlled glider. In fact, I had thought about that, but for me to drop a radio-controlled glider from my drone and then reach over and grab the RC controller for the radio-controlled glider, that just wasn't going to work. So I gave up the idea of dropping one that I could control to the ground. But they had what they call a discus launched glider, and it's radio controlled, and they're about $50 from Horizon Hobby. And I was thinking about getting one of them, but you only get about 20 seconds of flight, maybe 30, because you throw it up with your arm like you throw a discus. And some of the guys get pretty good of it, but this shoulder has arthritis, this shoulder has arthritis, and I didn't really want to go that route. So I went another 25 or 30 bucks, and I got I'll get it out here. I got a motorized glider. All right. Now, as you can see, if I'll put some pictures up, I've been flying radio-controlled planes for many, many years, and I never have gotten really good at it. I didn't grow up with radio control, and if you grew up with radio control, then you know how easy it is. But for a guy who didn't start until he was in his, I was probably in my 40s before I really got started on it. And by that time, I was flying a full-size plane, and when you fly a full-size plane, you get up and you trim it and you fly, and then you go have fun, and you don't have to go in circles. So there was really not that much excitement of trying to keep track of the plane, and the whole time you're trimming like like it's about to crash. And with the gas motors, I spent a lot of time cleaning out the engine, because after you crash into the dirt, you got to tear it apart and clean it up. So when electric came along, then I started trying some more RC flying. And so when I moved down, when I moved down here to Arizona almost 3 years ago, I had my Apprentice S, which has got almost a 5-foot wingspan, and I'd been flying it up in Washington. So I brought that, and then I had my ham radio wouldn't, I couldn't get out my ham radio. If you know the story, I sold all that stuff and bought a Bebop drone. But I also wanted to go over to the park and fly little planes. So I bought a couple other planes. I got this one here, which I'll show a picture of. I got one underneath of it there that's called a Cub Sport. And they're really nice, but the same thing is true. You go in circles and circles and circles and circles. And that just doesn't enthuse me. So when I saw the guys on YouTube flying these gliders, I decided that's what I want, because you don't go in circles. You get it up and you power it up, and you get it up there, and then you cut the power, and then you just glide wherever the wind pushes you, pretty much. I mean, you got to glide into the wind or you'll go away. So anyway, it's really fun. And I went to the park. I tried to make a bunch of videos, and that didn't work too good. But I do have a video, which I'll show you, of one little flight that I made. And so the one thing that, if you're going to get into that, and I would recommend the glider if you want to get into it, because all you have to do is know how to take off, and you get up a little ways and you cut the throttle, and that thing will just glide around, and you don't have to say, oh, it's going around, it's going around. You just watch it, and it floats around in the breeze, and then finally comes down. And when it gets close to the ground, you give it power, fly back up. You really don't have to know a whole lot, and that suits me really well. So anyway, you do have to have at least a 3-channel controller. and they're not real expensive anymore. This one, I think this one is somewhere between $30 and $50 where you go. This is a, and by the way, that's a Spectrum model, so you have to get a Spectrum controller. So anyway, this is 5 channels, so it's more than what you need, but there's room to grow if you get another model that has more channels and stuff. And then they go on up. I've got a DX6 here I finally could afford. It's $200, but these aren't that expensive. So you need that, and you're ready to go. So of course I had to make some modifications to this one. They expect you to leave it put together, where they give you some little screws. And with the real fragile plastic, if I'm driving to the park and if I'm taking my grandson or anything, it's not going to fly when I get there. My grandson is not clumsy or anything. He just likes to touch everything. So, and I'm the one that's clumsy. So anyway, I'm going to show you the modification that I did. All right. So we'll go over to my desktop and I'll show you what I did so I could take it apart, put it in a box, take it to the park, even on my bicycle. All right, so let's go to my workbench. All right, here we are with the Radian, and we'll flip it over here, and you can see, I have to get this cleaned up here. My wife made me that, and I'll tell you more about that later. Okay, you see these 2 little holes here? If you have the right screwdriver, and if you're a hobbyist, you probably do, they give you 2 of those, and you put them into the hole and line it up with the holes on the wing. Let's pull those out there. Line it up with these, and I don't need the wing anymore, so let's just pull that all the way out. And this is just mounted in the wing, and then you screw into those, okay? So that's the idea. And then like one guy, I was watching his video, and when he was putting the screw in, well, it fell down in here, and he had to tear it apart because it stuck to the magnet in the motor, okay? And then when I put mine in, I dropped the screw in and I lined everything up, and then I couldn't tell whether it was going down or not because it's so far down here, and I think I might have stripped it, but anyway, that doesn't matter. I went ahead and I went to the flying field and flew with it, and everything was fine. But when I got back, I decided, nah, I think I'm going to fix it different. So, I do need the wing in for one more thing here. So what I did, whoops, wrong side. You don't know how many times I've had to make videos to get them right finally, but you could probably guess. Okay, so we get these. What I did was when I got home, I lined it all up. And you see these marks? I made those marks on both sides so that I would everything I did, I'd be able to get it right back like it was. So I made those marks before I took out the screws. Okay, so. Then it makes it a lot easier when I start doing what I did for modification. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to have something I put in here and would match up those holes and hold them in place. And I thought, because I have some safety wires, some stainless steel safety wire, but I didn't want to add weight to the thing. I was thinking of longer screws, that would work. And I actually went out in my little garage and I looked. I've got some little tiny screws, but that's just more weight. Finally, I came up with the idea of a toothpick, okay? And the point of the toothpick is too thin. So what I did was I cut the tip off of the toothpick, and then it would just fit into the hole. Okay, so that was my first step. The next thing I needed to do was I needed to have something wider up here so it wouldn't wobble when it was in the big hole. Okay, and so the first thing I did was I got some mending tape and I wrapped it around, and made it. Took about a 5-inch piece. and it worked, and it kept that from flopping around like that. Okay. The only thing is the next day when I came back, the mending tape had started to unravel. So I thought, okay, what am I going to do here? And I have some. Let me grab it here. I have some heat shrink tubing that I got at Harbor Freight. It's not very expensive, and a 3 millimeter diameter piece of heat shrink tubing I put on there, and it wasn't quite enough, so I had to put another piece on and shrink it down. Now you can shrink your heat shrink tubing with a match just down underneath of it, or my son uses he's got a little torch. I've got a heat gun, but anything. I mean, if you just put a soldering gun close to it, it'll shrink. So, but it takes 2 layers, okay? And so then I did that, and of course then this has to be cut off right down there, and then you have to be able to pull it out. So that's why I just, after I couldn't get it out, then I finally got it out, and I thought, okay, we got to have something on there. So I made a new one with thread running through them. Got some thread from my wife, and they get stuck in there pretty tight. And so I was pulling up on it, and it pulled the thread out. So then I thought, okay, so now you can see right there, maybe you can see right there, there's a knot. I put a knot in the thread, and then that would work. So here's a finished product over here that is what I used. Now I took it out flying this morning and made a video that I'll be putting on the end of this. Anyway, so that's how I pull it out. So there's two different lengths too, so you have to cut the right length. Come on, get in there. They stick to my fingers. Yeah, so we'll push that down. Whoop, push that down in there. Okay. Now then, as you can see inside there, maybe if I can turn it right, it's sticking through, and it's going to be poking through the wing when it gets down there. And I need to put another piece of Velcro right there. But I put new Velcro on that's thicker, and that way the battery will hold. If that sticks up just a little further than the flush, then the battery will hold it from popping out. So if we put a battery in there, like that, then the battery will keep those two. There's supposed to be another one back here. That'll keep them from popping out. And then I got to thinking, well, if you're flying along and the vibration of the motor causes the battery to loosen up a little bit, well, then those things are going to come out. And not only that, but I don't think the battery is going to come off. But anyway, if it did, it'd be hanging down. And if it came off, now you have no control of the plane. So I asked my wife real nicely, I said, would you make me a piece of material that I can slide through there, and then when you get everything on there, then you just take and patch it together like that, and holds the battery in, and everything works great. So when you're all through, you just pull that out, and you got your own. You can take it apart and put it in a box, take it to the park. And so anyway, I have a short video, very short. I'm going to show you how it worked this morning. And the reason it's very short is because I kept forgetting to do things with my GoPro camera, so I don't do as well as I used to. Anyway, so I think that's about all. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I think that's about all there is. This is the most fun RC plane I've ever had, for real. So, and I've had a lot of experience. At my age, anything that's easy is fun. So I want to thank you for watching, and God bless. Okay, there we go. He's got an updraft. That's a nice one. up there again. See what we can get going here. Got an updraft. Back up and try it again. Nice breeze. I don't know. I think it's about 6 miles an hour or something. Seems like it's a little more than that. Alright, I think we'll bring it in. That's enough of a demo, I think. Likes to nosedive when he gets the opportunity. Alright, oh, almost tripped. Well, hope I got a video this time.